Hello everybody and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today we'll be doing a box office preview for this upcoming weekend, which sees the brand new film The Nun 2 from Warner Brothers taking the #1 spot, expected to make a whopping $31.4 million. So this franchise is still continuing to make money, especially when these films cost a lot less than other films typically put out by Warner Brothers, as we all know that they've been spending hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, especially on their DCEU fare, and those have not really been doing much of anything. So it's good for them to have a win in a lot of ways, but The Nun 2, I have no personal interest in it because I am not a horror fan, and let's just say, for me, the trailer is creepy as all get out, and I'm like, no, I have no interest in seeing you. All the while, we have the Equalizer 3 expected to have a pretty massive 63% drop. We'll talk about where that stands in context with the other Equalizer films and where the film currently is doing at this same point, right now at the point of its release. And we also have a brand new film in My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3. Can't believe that they're making 3 of these now, but hey, apparently some people are going to see them, but really not as many as they once did with the first film. But before getting further, though, please make sure you smash that like button, loud the fire button, honestly smash the rumble button as well. Also, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel with that bell notification. That way you know every time a video or live stream goes live on the channel. So as I mentioned, The Nun 2 expected to have a $31.4 million opening up at around 3,600 screens. So this is going to easily take that #1 spot. And again, The Nun has been, and really this entire universe that's been built, surrounding this character, and also other films that have kind of had connections to it. I believe that this is a part of one of those massive franchises. I don't think it's the exact same universe as the Annabelle franchise or as the Conjuring franchise, but it's definitely of like that similar vein, right? And so The Nun is clearly reaching out to certain people. Coming out in September probably would have been better maybe to come out in October, but hey, $31.4 million is a pretty strong opening nonetheless. Equalizer 3 from Sony, $12.8 million. Again, 63% drop. That's a pretty massive drop off. Talking there about its week 2 numbers. Now, if we actually compare this to some of the other films that have come out in the franchise, the second film actually dropped 61%. So it dropped from around $36 million to $14 million. And so again, with this film opening up to around 35 million or so domestically, with its 4-day total because of Labor Day being closer to $40 to $42 million, we are seeing again some pretty comparable drops there, though obviously that percentage is going to be just a little bit higher. So again, 12.8 million is what is expected according to Box Office Pro that this film should be making, whereas Equalizer 2 made another 14 million. So again, we can clearly see this film is definitely tracking behind the other films, but also not by all that much. If you compare this to the Equalizer, the first film, again, both films really actually fall in comparison, right? The first film actually only ended up dropping around 45% from its week 1 and week 2 drop off. And so I do think that it is interesting to see these films and how they are performing in their different ways. So again, both of these films, Equalizer 1 and 2, still ended to be around the same amount of money. Though, of course, we do know because of ticket prices changing every single year, this film, Equalizer 3, is actually doing much worse. If you actually compare that, we did a breakdown of this the other day on the live stream. So if you want to check that out, the live stream is still up on the channel where we actually go into the estimated ticket sales. But hey, Equalizer 3 is definitely still doing probably better than what a lot of other films are doing today. And it does need to make nearly as much money as the Equalizer 2 did to break even because of a much smaller budget compared to Equalizer 2 by about $20 million or so. But again, we will keep on tracking it and we will be able to say for sure whether or not it hits that break even point or not. Then we have My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3. Again, the first one was fun. When they announced the second one, the trailer just made it look so incredibly uninteresting, and now they're releasing this one. And I just remember the second one just did not even come close to matching the first film box office wise. At least that's what I remember from it. And I suspect that that's going to be a similar story with this movie, right? This is expected to make around $8 million or so. So again, maybe that's good for their franchise at this point in the release, but to me, that just sounds really, really bad. And we'll do a full breakdown of this when we get the actual numbers, when we actually get, the last final reported budgets and things like that, to be able to talk about whether or not that's going to be a win for the film or not. Interestingly enough, Barbie is finally getting knocked out of that top spot, right? So we've seen the film, come in the #1 spot, the #2 spot, right? It's been the top 3 basically for the entire run of its release. And so now, because of these new films, it's actually going to be dropped down to the number 4 spot. Still very, very impressive. $6.1 million there, 40% hold from the previous week. $620 million is what it's expected to have domestically by the end of this weekend. So still adding on to those overall funds. And as I mentioned in previous videos, it actually does have a chance of catching up to the likes of a Top Gun Maverick. Not necessarily because it's going to catch the domestic total, but because it's making so much more internationally that could end up making up the distance between those two movies, where the film is still doing very well domestically. Blue Beetle, again, behold, percentage-wise, not the worst in the world, but still just not making much of anything. $4.1 million there, but that's still only a total domestic of $63.9 million. And as this film is just barely, edging its way over $100 million worldwide, this film is looking to end somewhat close to Shazam, and probably somewhere between Shazam 2 and the final number for The Flash. And for a film that costs $100+ million, yeah, not a good place for that film to ultimately be. Oppenheimer continuing to also hold very well, 41%. Again, interesting that Barbie and Oppenheimer are still having very similar holds, even though, of course, Barbie has a lot more total money overall. Gran Turismo, unfortunately, is continuing to drop off quite a bit, another 50% drop. So again, this film had about a 60+% drop last weekend, now dropping another 50%. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like this film is really just doing much of anything domestic. It still has that hope of doing a little bit better internationally, and maybe it's not going to be the biggest flop in the world, but it's definitely not going to be the massive hit that it really deserves to be, because it is a very, very good film, and probably one of the best films to come out this year. TMNT continuing to also hold very strong as well. I've talked about that film before. The Meg 2... shout out to you, King Kane Rumsky. Meg 2 still have no interest in seeing it, and apparently a lot of people in the domestic market also have no interest in seeing it. All of its money is coming from overseas. And then there's the film Bottoms, which I, again, have no general interest in. Tony over at Deadline was talking about Equalizer 3 on track to make the $42 million in its 4-day opening, and it talked about how The Nun 2 is indeed eyeing that $30 million number. I know, River. I know. I have no interest in seeing it either. I don't like the horror films. They scare me. You don't have to tell me, River. I know. So anyway, going back into the Equalizer 3 numbers right now, it's at $72 million worldwide. And as you can see, domestically, it's actually performing better than historical standards. So box office, the box office tracking over at the numbers uses this chart here, and it says, hey, based on the last 5 years or so of movie data, based off of the opening weekend, this is how a film is performing compared to other movies. So this film is currently performing better than what most other films with its opening weekend have performed at. But of course, this coming weekend with that type of 60% drop, we'll probably see this fall back into that shaded area. Both of the other Equalizer films were able to actually fall into that same thing, right? So again, going towards the bottom end of that, right? And so clearly it has its audience. It's not really growing its audience. It's not really being able to pick up a lot of momentum. But I will say, if you like the first Equalizer films, I think you will like this one. And if you haven't seen the Equalizer films, I would recommend them. I think they're a lot of fun. I think that, and Denzel Washington especially, is what makes the entire series work. So if you're a big Denzel fan or you like him in general, I think you're going to love the films that he is in. But those are the numbers currently as they stand with this box office preview. What are y'all's thoughts? Do you think that we're going to see The Nun 2 just run away with things? We like to do things live here on the channel sometimes, so let me go ahead and try to pull up some quick numbers real fast to see if we can find out just some general data on the movie. Let's see if there is a reported budget yet. So right now, as we're recording of this video, no reported budget yet for The Nun 2. This is the reason why I typically don't talk about those, because usually those come out around this time. Sometimes they get released a little bit earlier than that, but ultimately, usually, still waiting on these things. So My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3, we also still do not have a budget for either. Let me go ahead and see also if I can do a quick comparison here. If you stayed around to the very end of the video, hey, thank you very much for that. Because if you look at the entire franchise of the Big Fat Greek Wedding, I didn't know that they made a TV series. That's interesting. So anyway, going into the original film again, this was the film that was a huge hit, right? It cost $5 million to make, and it made $368 million worldwide. So again, that was a very, very impressive cost to to profit ratio. And then when you had My Big Fat Greek Wedding, that film only ended up making $90 million. So it cost 3 times as much at $18 million and made much less, right? 3 to 4 times less than the original. So again, the first film, $350+ million. Second film, $90 million. So again, we're looking at these numbers here for the upcoming weekend for My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3, and that's the reason why I'm looking at it saying, yeah, it looks like this franchise is just continuing to fall down the proverbial cliff, as it were. But anyway, let me know your thoughts about this and anything else I mentioned in the comment section down below. If you like this video, smash that like button. Light the fire button. Obviously, smash the rumble button as well. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, God bless. And now for a huge special shout out to all of my Chosen of Valhalla members: Father Luca Illich, Laura, the Mother Major General's Story, Rosetta Allen, check out her YouTube channel by the name Eagle Rider. Miss Martin Muses, check out her YouTube channel by the same name. Also to Matt317, check out his Twitch channel of the same name. Mr. Roy and ZK-Man, check him out over at xtheboundaries.co. Thank you very much for being my chosen members this month, and if you want your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and video, also access to a podcast, access to a giveaways channel, and tons of other stuff, go check out to be a member today in the links in the video description below. You guys are all amazing, and Beetle people, have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, God bless.